Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday. Hope everyone out there had a great weekend. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Titans wrapped up the preseason on Friday night. College football returned with week 0 action on Saturday. Plenty to get to throughout the show. The Titans cutting down their roster to 53 tomorrow afternoon. We will do some roster math later on in the show to see how many locks there are and where those inflection points might come on the bubble as the Titans cut down their roster over the next 24 hours or so. Parker Kelly with us for the full show today. Parker, what's going on? How was your weekend?
Jake, it was phenomenal. We had college football back. We had some Farmageddon action to get to. It's hard to complain because Saturdays in the fall are back, and it's better than ever.
It is, and it was fantastic to be able to sit down on Saturday morning and just get ready for a college football game. And we talked about it last week about how week 0, a little bit underwhelming, but there was one great game, and that's Farmageddon, Iowa State, Kansas State. We'll talk about it later. It worked out for me that I got to sit down and watch it. I then went down to Tullahoma and called a high school football game, which I got to say was a ton of fun. I hadn't called high school football in almost 2 seasons. It was the 2023 fall, the last time I got to call a game. It was a ton of fun. Tullahoma got the win over Shelbyville, rivalry matchup. Marvancy Johnson scored 4 touchdowns for them, so shout out Marvancy Johnson. It was a really fun game to call, so it was a good weekend to go watch some high school football and really start to feel like fall is back. I don't know if you haven't walked outside yet today. Weather's a little chillier. It's starting to feel like football here.
It's getting a little crisp out there, right? Pumpkin spice is making its way back to the shelves in grocery stores. Right. So it's a sign. Fall's upon us.
I think the pumpkin spice lattes come back tomorrow. I think my fiance told me that this morning. So it's the first signs of fall. It is false fall. Is that what they call it around here? False fall.
Fake
like
fall,
it's going to get up to 90s
fall
again at some point. But for now, we'll be happy the highs are in the 70s.
And that may come in November, may come in December. I remember when I was a freshman in high school and we got up to 90 degrees in December one year.
Right. Who knows? Like right now, be happy. The highs are in the 70s and 80s for the next week. I'm sure it will be blazing hot again before we know it. Couple of things before we get into the Titans preseason game from Friday night. Lot to get to with that finale. Cam Ward, his performance, scoring a touchdown on the last drive of his preseason. Van Jefferson's bounce back game. We'll get into all of that in this first hour. But before we get into football, I've got to shout out Tommy Fleetwood. Tommy Fleetwood has been the definition of always the bridesmaid, never the bride. He comes up short in all of these tournaments, had never won a PGA Tour event. He decides to save it for the Tour Championship. He finally wins yesterday and wins himself a cool $10 million. Tommy Fleetwood saving his best for last to wrap up the golf season and finally winning. The opportunities he had this year, unbelievable how many times he had the lead on Sunday and just couldn't close it out. Yesterday, he got out to a 3-stroke lead. It closed up a little bit, but he was able to pull away, beats Patrick Cantlay. Again, $10 million. That's a pretty good weekend for Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah, and it's always fun to root for the underdog, and I'm not saying Tommy Fleetwood's an underdog, but he's just been there. He has been so close, and to finally see him push back that through that barrier and finally get the win, $10 million, not a bad prize right there. So
right, and you see the emotion from him after he finally sunk that last putt, and he talked about how he'd gotten so close, and it's got to be great to finally get the monkey off his back. I think that's something all sports fans can rally behind. Is this guy? He's worked hard. He's come so close. He finally wins. You know, a major is obviously more important, but outside of a major, the Tour Championship is probably about as close as you can get to the big time, and he ends up getting a nice $10 million check for his win in the Tour Championship. Also this morning came out ESPN ranking their top 100 players, and I think this top 100 is better than the NFL top 100, which, yes, is still coming out. I believe they finally are into
which
the
is
teens.
So nuts.
We talked a bit about this on the show like a month and a half ago about Who knew that the NFL Top 100 was coming out? Guess what? It's still coming out. I believe they're at like 16 or 17.
They've been dragging this thing out. I mean, just dragging it out.
I think it's supposed to get to 1 right before the season starts, but they've changed it up from, instead of doing it on TV, they're just releasing it on Twitter, 2 players at a time. So I don't like the NFL Top 100. They have Tua Tagovailoa ranked as a top 100 player this year. The players, as much as you know the players know football, I don't really trust the players' opinions on who the top 100 players are, because a lot of them seem to just write in their friends or they write in quarterbacks, and that's how you get Tua Tagovailoa in the top 100. ESPN put together a column of the opinions of 10 different NFL analysts. So it's a lot of opinions. They rank the top 100 players. Can you guess how many players are in the top 100 for the Titans, Parker?
One.
I think that
was
easy.
So hard. That was such a hard guess.
That was tough. Jeffrey Simmons is ranked 65th this year, 21 spots lower than he was a year before. So after a year where he only had 5.5 sacks and really didn't have his best stuff throughout the year, he falls 21 spots. Here's what they say about Jeffrey Simmons. Simmons' offseason goal was to cut fat and pack on muscle, streamlining his body to more effectively get after the quarterback. He is noticeably quicker, but still packs the strength to bull rush offensive linemen. Defensive coordinator Denard Wilson plans to use Simmons more across the formation to create favorable matchups this season. He hasn't recorded a double-digit sack campaign yet. That is from our friend Teron Davenport, who will be on the show with us tomorrow for all 3 hours. So excited to have TD for a TD Tuesday once again. The projection that they have for Jeffrey Simmons, 6 sacks. So maybe not what Simmons would be hoping for. I think, the change he's made with his body, he's trying to get leaner so he can get after the quarterback. I think he wants to surpass that career high of 8.5 sacks so he can get paid again. 6 sacks, I think, would be a disappointment, but Jeffrey Simmons, the only Titan listed in the top 100 by ESPN's ranking. Not surprising. I think Calvin Ridley maybe would be in the top 150, but I don't know if you could really make an argument for anybody else to be in the top 100.
I don't think so either. I think Amani Hooker might be third, but that's a stretch. So Calvin Ridley's definitely next in line. Going back to the Simmons thing, if he gets 6 sacks, I mean, that's the reason he lost 20 pounds. And we're seeing a trend of defensive tackles, guys like Micah Parsons, who are thinner, but they have the speed to power rush. And that's why Jeffrey Simmons lost weight, so he can record more than 6 sacks. He got 5 last year. And a 1 sack improvement, I think, would be a disappointment in his eyes.
Right. Sacks are not always an individual stat. Like, I know we look at these a lot when it comes to how good is a pass rusher, you base it off sacks, but sacks don't always mean that you made the play. Sometimes it's Tavondre Sweat bull rushes up the middle and ends up pushing the quarterback right into somebody else's arms. Tavondre Sweat made that play happen, but he doesn't get the sack. Somebody else does. So you can't use sacks completely as the metric to measure Jeffrey Simmons' performance. But again, he's talked about how he got leaner to get more sacks. He's got to get more than just a marginal increase in sacks if he wants to prove that he deserves another big contract. Other highlights, maybe not highlights if you're a Titans fan. Derrick Henry ranked 29th by ESPN. A.J. Brown ranked 26th. Both of them, I believe, are lower than last year. Actually, Henry moves up. Henry was not ranked last year. That's interesting.
It was shocking.
I didn't notice that, but I guess, he wasn't coming off his best year with the Titans. Your top 10, no surprise, Patrick Mahomes is number 1, Josh Allen number 2, Myles Garrett 3, Lamar Jackson 4, Joe Burrow 5. Week 1 opponent, Pat Surtain is 6th, the second highest rated defensive player on the list. So that'll be a tough test for Calvin Ridley and Cam Ward. Wide receivers, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase go 7 and 8. Micah Parsons 9, despite laying on the training table this weekend, and Chris Jones rounds it out at 10. So again, that's the NFL Top 100 from ESPN. I trusted a little bit more than the NFL Top 100 from the players, but again, it's tough to compare position by position. It's not comparing apples to apples, but in both of those rankings, the Titans only have 1 player in the top 100, and that is Big Jeff Simmons. We'll talk more about Jeffrey Simmons later on in the show, as he was on the field on Friday night. I thought he looked pretty good. I was surprised they put him back out there for a second series, but he did look like his old self. Excited to see him in the regular season, but we'll talk about that more later on in the show. Also, we'll get into college football, week 0 over the weekend. Farmageddon was an instant classic. Heck of a game between Iowa State and Kansas State out there in Dublin. Also, Hawaii caps off the day with an upset win, if you want to call it that, over
Go
Stanford.
Bows, baby.
The Rainbow Warriors pulling off the win at home thanks to a walk-off field goal. Also, I was in the stadium on Friday night for the Titans' first home game of the year. I have a couple of gripes on presentation issues, and we'll talk about that coming up in the 10 o'clock hour. But coming up next, Cam Ward, his preseason finale. He ends it on a high note, but are we concerned about some of the technical stuff with Cam Ward? Also, Van Jefferson doing what he does, showing out on a Friday night in Middle Tennessee. We'll talk about both of those players coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday morning. Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. That was Brian Callahan post-game on Friday night, talking about what he wants to see from Cam Ward after the preseason as he prepares for his regular season debut just under 2 weeks away against the Denver Broncos. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. You can text or call our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. So, Cam Ward, his third and final preseason game before his debut for his rookie season, about a week and a half away, 2 weeks away. He looked good on Friday night. 16 plays out there for Cam Ward. He only threw the ball 4 times. Did take his first sack in the preseason, which I think we all knew was it would happen at some point, and you were missing 3 starters instead of 2 on the offensive line this week. The entire right side of the offensive line, in fact, was backups with Corey Levin, Blake Hance, and Oli Udoh were out there on Friday night. So he takes a sack, but overall goes 3 for 4. The only incompletion came on that Brian Callahan mentions in that clip that he saw some zero blitz for the first time. He tried to pass out of it to Tyler Lockett on that orbit motion. It wasn't a great throw. Lockett dropped it. Even if he had caught it, I don't know if there was much room for him to make a move and get by the defender. But outside of that, Cam Ward made some throws, hit Van Jefferson on the sideline to start off that 90-yard touchdown drive, his final drive of the preseason, found Alec Iamaner twice over the middle. So overall, I liked what I saw from Cam Ward on Friday night. I think he looked in control of the offense. Even on that play to Tyler Lockett, it did look like, and I saw it was Brian Baldinger did a breakdown of that Brian Flores blitz zero that he showed him. It looked like Cam Ward at least recognized it. He got the ball out quick. You'd like to see a more accurate throw, but at the very least, you saw the processing was there. So overall, I thought Cam Ward looked good on Friday night. Again, it's preseason against backups, but encouraging signs as he ends the preseason on a high note heading into the regular season.
And that's what Brian Flores tries to do. He tries to make a living off of going after younger quarterbacks like this. And he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league for a reason, throwing all those exotic blitzes, the man pressures, all of that. And I also thought Cam Ward played well this preseason. He did exactly everything that I wanted to see. He didn't turn the football over despite almost doing it in the first game against Tampa. His timing looked good. His feet looked good. I thought he took what was given to him, checked it down when need be, made some explosive plays. So overall, nothing too much to complain about Cam Ward, and I actually feel more confident about him going into Denver than I did about 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, and they obviously relied on the run game on that drive, but I thought that drive was the best that we've seen Cam Ward look in the preseason. Even the touchdown drive against Tampa, you mentioned, he probably should have been picked off on that drive before they got down and scored. So I thought that was the best drive that he had. Got helped out a little bit by the holding call on third down, although that was a nice play, rolling to his right, found an open receiver. Maybe you don't want him throwing back across his body to the middle of the field, but something that the coaching staff and Mike Borgonzi has praised is his spatial awareness. And clearly you could see that he saw Chestnut running out across the field and found him, but got bailed out a little bit by that holding call. But overall, I thought Cam Ward looked good. He came up about 6 inches short of throwing his first touchdown pass in the preseason. Alec Iamaner just couldn't quite reach to the goal line, and they cashed it in on the very next play to get into the end zone. So Cam Ward looked good. I think that's a confidence builder when it comes to Cam Ward's final appearance of the preseason. You know, you want to send him in there on a high note, and I think they did exactly that. I do have a thought on Cam Ward's footwork. And Parker Kelly, we have a resident quarterback coach with us. So we'll get to that here in a second. But first, let's go to our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Dustin from Hopkinsville is on the line. Dustin, thanks for calling. Good morning. What you got for us?
Good morning, guys. While I didn't watch the game in real time, I went back and watched Cam play a little bit. And I think it was last week or after the first preseason game. Some caller texted in and said, you know, he hadn't scored a touchdown or whatever. Well, when you play 2 drives, I mean, you don't get momentum. It's the preseason. Coming from somebody who's been very critical on Cam Ward, buddy, I flipped the script. I like what I see now. Like, I see it now. And this was 2 weeks ago. I wasn't. He's got zip on the ball. He throws it away. And that's one thing I can say. He is using his brain where Will Levis didn't. he's got some physical attributes too that I really like. He's playing smart. The game is not too big for him right now. I know it's preseason, but like you said, they're sending guys at him, and he's throwing the ball away. I thought he was holding it too long at first, but the dude's mobile, and if he can get away and try to make something happen and still throw it away, I'm good with it. I really like what I've seen out of the last 2 games, even though Van Jefferson cannot catch a dang cold.
Thanks for the call, Dustin. I don't know about that. We'll talk about Van Jefferson in a second, but Van looked pretty dang good on Friday night against the Vikings. But I agree with you. I think Cam Ward, I said last week, we did kind of a vibe check on Cam Ward, and do you feel better? Do you feel worse about Cam Ward than you did at the beginning of training camp? And I said I felt a little bit worse. I was one of the big advocates for Cam Ward and drafting him and saying that this is a franchise quarterback. I think he underwhelmed me a little bit early on, but I am liking that you're seeing the growth. The Tampa Bay game, there were 2 plays where you look at and you say, he's got to be smarter than that. You hit a DB right in the hands, and then you leave the throwaway inbounds, which ended up hurting him a couple of days later in the joint practices against Atlanta. But we've seen him start to make some growth. There were no turnover-worthy plays on Friday night against the Vikings. Like, he took care of the football. He made the throws when he had to. The Van Jefferson throw to start off that second drive. Parker, I want to get your thoughts on this. So there were a lot of tweets. I saw Paul Kaharski put one out that the Titans are trying to coach Cam Ward to step into his throws. And you can clearly see that he kind of fades away there. He steps sideways and just shows off the pure arm talent to get that ball out there. Parker Kelly, for those who don't know, he coaches quarterbacks, a former college football quarterback in our presence here. Do you think that is a red flag for Cam Ward, that maybe he isn't stepping into his throws, or is that just a guy who has so much arm talent that he can get away with some of those things, like stepping sideways on that throw to Van Jefferson to start off the second drive?
Overall, I don't have a huge issue with his mechanics, because when I watch Cam Ward, his mechanics are very similar to that of Patrick Mahomes. Not saying he is Patrick Mahomes, just saying his mechanics are very similar to Patrick Mahomes. Now, what do we know about Cam Ward? He has incredible arm talent. That was clearly on display at Miami. It was on display at Washington State. There are some times where, yes, he does fade away from the throw. And what Paul Kaharski is referring to is sometimes Cam Ward has this, he'll step sideways instead of stepping at his target. And what I like to refer to that as is stepping in the bucket. He steps in the bucket sometimes, and he gets his shoulders turned to about 90 degrees. And from there, it is all arm. And just because you can make throws like that doesn't mean you always should make throws like that. And what I tell my quarterbacks is it all starts from the ground up. So if you're stepping at your target, you're getting your hips, you're getting that torque, that makes the throw so much easier. And there are some times where Cam Ward does step to the side, and from there, it's all arm. A great example of it was the almost pick in the Tampa game. He stepped to the side, and it was all arm, and it almost resulted in a pick. If you step into it, you get the proper rotation, it makes the throw so much easier.
Yeah, and I think, and Titans fans may not want to hear this because it's going to be a mistake in a game, a turnover, but he's probably going to have to underthrow one, have one get cut off by a DB and get picked off before he actually starts to make those changes. Like we saw it with I just mentioned the throwaway against Tampa. It didn't hurt him in the preseason game. It hurt him in the joint practice. And then he said, pain, like I didn't get away with it. I can't do that anymore. I think, and who knows, maybe he keeps doing it and it ends up working out for him. Maybe he has that much arm talent that the footwork doesn't really matter. But I think you can make the guess that eventually it's going to get him into some trouble, and he'll have to make the adjustment. Dustin from Hopkinsville texts in, if it works for him and doesn't cause chances for turnovers, it's not an issue. Agreed, but I think eventually it will become an issue, and he's going to have to figure it out.
Well, I'd also like to clarify, there are some times that he is going to have to step off to the side. Like if you have pressure and you kind of have to sidearm that thing, that stuff is going to happen. Mahomes does that all the time. Aaron Rodgers, he makes those throws. But it's the times where you're not getting pressure, where the offensive line's protecting for you, you have almost 4 seconds to throw. It's those times where I wouldn't recommend stepping in the bucket and just all arm from there. But
Yeah.
there are sometimes you will have to make those throws, but just because you can doesn't mean you make them all the time.
I think that's an important differentiation to make there is, yes, there are going to be times where off schedule or the throw to Iamaner that almost was the touchdown, where he kind of had to step around and sidearm it, and it was a great throw, and it was exactly what they needed right there. That's where you have to use it. But the Van Jefferson throw to start the drive, clean pocket, and instead of stepping into it, he stepped sideways. The throw was great. It got there, but against great defensive backs, which were not on the field when he made that throw, that one might flutter up there a little bit, and a guy can jump in front and pick it off. We'll see. I think it's going to take Cam Ward throwing a pick doing that for him to actually learn. Like a lot of times with these quarterbacks, you have to see it and have it hurt you before you make the change. So honestly, maybe it happens against Denver where he gets a little bit loose with it and it ends up costing the team. Then I think he has to make a little bit of a change.
And honestly, having to learn those tough lessons could actually be a good thing depending on your perspective. Throwing over the middle and being picked off by Cody Barton 3 times in practice. Cam Ward loved to throw over the middle at Miami. Loved to throw up the seams, loved to throw up the hashes. The hashes are a lot tighter in the NFL, so you can't necessarily throw it the same way you would throw it at, let's say, in Miami.
Yep.
So he's having to learn that lesson. I'm not sure if he'll do that in the regular season. We'll have to find out. I'm sure he'll try. But it's not always the worst thing in the world for a rookie quarterback to learn lessons the hard way.
David on our text line asked, don't you think he ended up having a more consistent preseason than Shedeur? Shedeur only played 2 games. Cam played 3, but, Shedeur played more in each of those games. Yes. This is why you don't make a judgment off of one preseason game. We had people texting in after Shedeur threw the 2 touchdowns against Carolina saying the Titans took the wrong quarterback. Guess what? It's a preseason game. I didn't get to watch the game Shedeur played on Saturday, but from the highlights that I saw and the reaction that I heard, I don't think he was very good. He took a 24-yard sack on 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 12. So not great. This is why you don't make judgments on the preseason. Cam Ward was widely regarded as the number 1 quarterback in the draft. The Giants tried to trade up for him and couldn't because the Titans wanted him that bad. I think that speaks more than what these guys do in a couple of preseason drives.
And it's not apples to oranges either.
Right.
So
we will see what happens when the regular season starts. We are getting closer. 10 days away from kickoff between the Eagles and the Cowboys, and 13 days away from the Titans' debut in Mile High coming up on September the 7th. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. Coming up next, it was a big day for Van Jefferson, and Titans fans were all ready to cut Van Jefferson after that drop against Atlanta a couple weeks ago. He comes out, puts up over 100 yards with a long touchdown. We will talk about Van and his place on this roster coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. That was Cam Ward after the game on Friday night, talking about the big day from Van Jefferson. Triple-digit receiving yards. He had the long touchdown from Brandon Allen. Really nice bounce-back day for Van Jefferson after, again, kind of being cut by the fan base after dropping that pass from Cam Ward in Atlanta. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. I really like what I saw from Van Jefferson on Friday night. And again, it's against backups. Have to put the caveat in there of I don't think Van Jefferson is going to immediately become a productive receiver who puts up 500 yards this year. That's not what I'm saying, but he was never going to be cut. But I think he's put himself in a spot where he's going to be a starter for this team to start the year. I don't think Alec Iamaner is going to get that starting X spot immediately, but Van Jefferson's days as a starter are numbered, but he is a good placeholder to have until Alec Iamaner is ready. Like, I think that's all he's going to be. And I think by the end of the season, there could be a chance that Van Jefferson is a healthy scratch when your options are, do you want to have Chim Dike out there and Bryce Oliver, who's a great gunner? And if James Prochet is your punt returner, he's got to be active. I think there's a chance by the second half of the season that Van Jefferson is a 50-50 shot to be active on game days. But I think for right now, he's proven that he can at least be a reliable option for the first couple weeks until Alec Iamaner gets his feet wet enough that he can be your starting X receiver.
You know how this fan base is, overreacting to everything. I thought it was a terrible drop, personally, against Atlanta for Van Jefferson. This was the bounce-back game that he needed, but I feel that he was always going to make this roster regardless of the drops because he's a veteran receiver, and to be honest, the quality of the receivers in the receiver room, not great. Van Jefferson can provide some veteran insight. There are plenty of players who may not be the best on the field, but what they contribute in the locker room and just from a mind perspective is way more beneficial than anything they can contribute on the field. He was always going to make this team just because he's a veteran.
Right. And the Titans don't really have the luxury of cutting guys who have been productive in the NFL. I mean, I think they're going to keep 7, and we'll do roster math later on in the show. But if you're keeping 7, he's going to make the team. Even if you keep 6, it probably means that Prochet is getting cut because he didn't win the punt returner job. I think he did, and I think they'll keep 7. Ben on our text line asks, how do you think the balance will work out during the season between Jefferson being a coveted tradable asset and staying to help Cam more? I wouldn't call Van Jefferson a coveted tradable asset, but who knows? If he makes some plays early on in the season, I get your point that maybe by the trade deadline, you want to get Alec Iamaner more opportunities, and if Van Jefferson is playing well, that could be an opportunity to trade him for a day 3 pick, maybe a 6th you could get for Van Jefferson. I could see it, but I don't know exactly if there are going to be many teams. Ben does mention an injury. A team might want him at some point. Maybe a team gets desperate for wide receiver help, and you could get something for Van Jefferson. I think he's just going to be a veteran presence in that room who's going to be on the field a lot early and maybe not a lot later on in the season. But it was really good to see Van Jefferson have a nice game on Friday night. Again, the Ravenwood High School product, he made some plays on a Friday night in Middle Tennessee. I was sitting at the game, and I believe I had some Ravenwood people sitting behind me, and they were very happy that Van Jefferson had himself a nice game. I'm getting some Adam in Portland calls me Jake from Hate Farm talking about Cam Ward's feet. And I see some people on the YouTube chat talking about this. I'm not saying this is a huge deal for Cam Ward. I was just bringing up a concern that was posed on Friday night. People looked at that throw and they said, Cam Ward stepping to his side. We have
how dare we analyze the rookie quarterback? Like, how dare we?
I'm not trying to say it's going to ruin his career because his footwork is a little sloppy at times. I'm saying it's something that the coaching staff has said they want to clean up, right? The coaching staff has said they want to clean up his footwork. And that was a play where he got away with it, and it was a great throw because he has great arm talent, but he may not always get away with it when he's facing actual NFL starters.
Coach Callahan said in his media availability that Cam Ward is not a finished product.
Right.
If Cam Ward was perfect, he would be a finished product. Clearly, there are some things to work. He's a rookie. And what did I start out by saying? I said, overall, I'm not concerned about his mechanics. I
I'm not
literally said
overly
that from the
concerned
jump.
either.
I said that from the jump.
I think there are going to be plenty of plays that Cam Ward makes with poor footwork that end up being highlight plays because that's just who he is. He calls himself a gunslinger, and sometimes he'll be off platform and he makes plays. But those are the plays that could get him in trouble when he's standing in a clean pocket and he doesn't have proper footwork. You could end up making a mistake. Like, the mechanics are important. The footwork is important. Can he get away with it because of his arm talent? For sure. But I'm not Jake from Hate Farm. I'm not hating here. I'm a big Cam Ward believer. I'm just looking at a concern that was posed
You're an
on Friday
optimistic
night.
person.
I am. I would say that I try and look at the bright side. And
You're glass half full.
yeah, exactly. And I would, again, if anybody listened to our Saturday show leading up to the draft, I was the one who was banging the drum for Cam Ward. I wanted Cam Ward from February. So I'm hoping I'm proven right by him. I'm just pointing out that you can see pretty easily on that throw, he could have stepped into it. He stepped sideways. It was a great throw. It was on the money. It was a great play, but it was against backups. If it's Pat Surtain out there, maybe somebody else, maybe he makes a play.
You may not get away with that.
Right. Exactly. So I think it probably isn't going to be a huge deal. I think he can get away with it, but not always. And it's something that I think he has to be a little bit more consistent with. And the coaching staff has said as much. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts on the Titans preseason finale against the Vikings, we'd love to hear from you. 615-737-1025. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This isn't just a concert, it's a cause. Trinetics Rock the Cradle helps give fragile newborns a stronger start and keeps moms close when it matters most. With Tim McGraw live on stage and your support behind every beat, Ascension St. Thomas is turning music into healing. Tickets are on sale now at rockthecradlenashville.org. When we come back, it was a big day for a certain Titans kicker on Friday night. The longest field goal in Nissan Stadium history and a double doink. We'll talk about Joey Sly and the Titans special teams coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Tune in for the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix race on 102.5 The Game this Sunday. Coverage begins at 1 p.m. and is brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. I want to talk about Joey Sly, the resident Hokie for me on the Tennessee Titans. I saw him on the sideline on Friday night, and he is a big man. That is a huge person who is a kicker. Not your typical kicker build for Joey Sly. It wasn't your typical kicker game for Joey Sly on Friday night either. 63-yard field goal, and preseason kicks don't count. So Rob Baronis' record of 60 yards is still safe for the longest in Nissan Stadium history, but he did knock it through from 63. It had room to spare. And then later in the game, from 53 yards out, he doinks it off the top of the upright, then off the crossbar and through. Parker, the side angle of that kick, I know you were doing Game Blitz, so I don't know if you guys were watching in here, but the side angle of it hitting off the top of the crossbar, it looks like it's going to come down and miss, but it had enough spin that it hits the upright and bounces through. Joey Sly, he may not be as accurate as Nick Folk was, but he is going to give the Titans an opportunity to capitalize. I would say from about the 45 in, that's within range for Joey Sly.
Joey Sly is a gym rat, and that's very evident in the way he's built. He's built like a linebacker, a short linebacker, but a linebacker. And the 63-yard field goal I did see in real time. I did not see the double doink since we were doing Game Blitz, but the 63-yard field goal, very impressive. It seems like the range for all these kickers just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. Brandon Aubrey had, a 64-yard field goal for the Cowboys?
Yeah, well, Cam Little had a 70-yard field goal for Jacksonville.
Yep.
How long do you think it is until we see a 75-yard field goal? Like, do you think that's within like 5 or 10 years? The legs just keep getting stronger.
I mean, Cam Little, did he have room to spare on that field goal?
I think he did. Like,
maybe a couple extra yards or so.
I mean, I remember the shot of Sebastian Janikowski for the Raiders lining up to kick from, I think it was like 70 to 75, and everybody kind of laughed at it 10 years ago. Now that might start to become the norm with the way these guys swing that leg. Like, it is not out of the question to see a 70-plus yard field goal in an actual game this year. And who knows how long before we get up towards 75. You might just have to get to your own 40 and you'll have a chance to kick a field goal with the way these guys
Brandon
are
Aubrey, the first
evolving.
one to make a 75-yarder. Might be Brandon Aubrey.
It's fantastic. And I think the Titans, they changed their special teams philosophy, both with kickers and punters this year. They kind of went opposite. With kicking, they wanted to get more aggressive. Nick Folk was almost automatic from inside 50, but you got beyond 50 and his range ran out. Joey Sly, he's probably going to miss a couple of 37-yard field goals this year, but he's also going to make a couple of 55 to 60-yard field goals. So you got to take the good with the bad there. With punting, they kind of did the opposite of Ryan Stonehouse was your boomer, not age, but your boomer punter. They now do have a boomer punter with age with Johnny Hecker, the veteran. And he's going to be more of your finesse, accuracy. He's going to try and set up his coverage to be in the best possible situations. I thought Johnny Hecker looked decent from what I saw on Friday night. So they flipped philosophies on special teams, going more aggressive in the kicking game, more conservative in the punting game with Bones Fossil at the helm.
And Ryan Stonehouse was actually cut over the weekend, I think,
yes,
or
he
waived
was. Yeah,
by the Dolphins.
He got cut by the Dolphins.
Yeah, but the thing with Johnny Hecker is the hang time, because ever since the injury, Ryan Stonehouse was never the same. Johnny Hecker gets great height on his punts, and it gives the punt unit a chance to get down the field to lessen the return. The thing with Stonehouse, he may kick it far, but it was a line drive. And that's why the Titans allowed it was a reason why the Titans allowed all these great punt returns last year.
If you kick it 65 yards, but you give up a 25-yard return, that's still not a great punt.
That's a net of 40, which isn't great.
Right. So. Like Johnny Hecker is he might kick it 50, but he's going to set up the coverage that they're going to be right there, force either a fair catch or a quick return. Johnny Hecker, from what we've heard, it hasn't been a great preseason, but I did think he looked decent on Friday night. I thought the hang time was good. There was one punt that they gave up a decent return, but it looked like it was more the coverage unit that wasn't great. I saw Mason Kinsey was one of the gunners, and it's the same conversation of why was Jaquan Jackson returning punts against Atlanta? Like, on special teams, give the guys who are actually going to do it the reps in the preseason. Like, I get it. You might need these guys as depth pieces later on. Like if Mason Kinsey makes it through to the practice squad and he has to be elevated later, sure. But I would have loved to just go put out the guys who are going to do it. And it was nice to see Chim Dike get some reps at punt returner on Friday night. But I think overall, the special teams game is going to look better this year for the Titans, although it's a low bar based on what Colt Anderson and Craig Ackerman have done the last couple of years.
Yeah, I thought Paul had a great question to Bones Fossil. I believe it was on Wednesday or Thursday, but asking about Jaquan Jackson because he's not going to make the team as a receiver. Why are you wasting reps with him at punt returner, at kick returner? He was also asked about Chim Dike, and it sounded like he was a little hesitant of sticking him out there right now since he's a rookie. His head's probably spinning. So it would make the most sense for James Prochet to be back there.
Yeah, I think the Titans are going to keep James Prochet, and we'll talk about the roster math coming up later. Adam in Portland, thank you. From boom to boomer. That's what the Titans did at punter this year, from Stonehouse to Hecker. It's a good one. Quick update from Terry McCormick of Titans Insider. He put out there this morning that a league source indicated that there appears to be a good chance the Titans will place running back Tyjae Spears on short-term injured reserve to begin the season. So Tyjae Spears will have to make the 53, and then he will immediately be placed on injured reserve. So I think that saves Julius Chestnut's job, at least for now. Not that I think Chestnut will make the 53, but I think they're going to make a waiver claim at running back. That one feels like one of the pretty safe positions. They're going to look for somebody who's a little bit more dynamic in the passing game, try and replace some of what Spears brought. But it seems like the Titans are going to play it safe with Tyjae Spears, which I think is the right move because, yeah, maybe he's healthy enough to play by week 2 or week 3, but those high ankle sprains can linger. And it's like if he gets rolled up on again, then you might lose him for a good chunk of the season. I kind of like the idea here of, let's put him on ice for a month, let him get fully healthy and bring him back. And we'll see what gets cut loose in the next 24 hours or so if the Titans can go find a third down type back. Because although I like Julius Chestnut, he had the nice hurdle on Friday night that set up the touchdown drive. And I think that Kalel Mullings has shown some promise too. You need somebody who can be the threat out of the backfield like Spears was to complement Tony Pollard.
Yeah, and the thing about the ankle injury for Tyjae Spears is I think it's also a bit of a mental block as well, because when you suffer an injury like that, it's kind of lingers in the back of your head that, oh no, I don't want to step this way because I may hurt my ankle again. So I think there's a mental hurdle as well. But going back to Julius Chestnut, he just finds a way just to stick around on this roster. He's kind of like Mason Kinsey in that way.
They're the cockroaches.
He's just always there. Keeps making plays, and the hurdle was really impressive in the touchdown run. So he'll find a way to make this 53-man. I think they're keeping, I guess 3 roster spots would be included for running backs, because if you're putting
I think
Tyjae
it'll
IR,
be 4 to start, and then you put Spears on IR
and then claim a running back.
Yeah, I think you claim one, and then it's a decision of where you think you need the spots elsewhere. If you think you can keep Julius Chestnut and bring in another running back, that's fine.
Yep.
But if they feel like they need more depth at offensive tackle, or maybe at edge, or inside linebacker or corner, maybe that's when you cut Julius Chestnut loose too and hope you can get him back on the practice squad. But yeah, I think they're going to keep 4, and Spears will go on IR. Running back now becomes one of those positions where I think a waiver claim is likely. And we'll go through the roster math in the 11 o'clock hour. I have a certain amount of locks on the 53-man roster and a certain amount of spots up for grabs. Although I think a decent amount of those spots that are up for grabs probably will be given to a waiver claim instead of somebody currently on the 90-man roster. Again, we are just over 24 hours away from roster cutdowns. We should start seeing these moves pouring in throughout the day today and tomorrow. We'll see where the Titans end up. And again, whoever makes the 53 tomorrow, there's a decent chance that there's some more churning of the roster at the back end with the Titans having the number one waiver priority. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. You can text or call. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Plenty more Titans talk throughout the morning here. We will do our roster math coming up at 11 o'clock. And again, I have two in-stadium gripes with the Titans. Maybe only one of them is in stadium, the other more just a visual thing. But college football is back. Week 0 over the weekend. We will dive into Farmageddon and Hawaii's big win over Stanford coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Second hour on this Monday morning. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We'll continue to talk Titans throughout the show after their preseason finale against the Vikings on Friday night. But it is college football season. We are officially into college football. No more Saturdays without some type of football until February. It's great. We got Farmageddon on Saturday. And Parker, I'm sure you watched every second of that game. I watched every second of it. I was a little disappointed. No College game day on Saturday morning. Because usually they will do the Dublin College game day to start off. At least the last couple years they've done it. I get it though with, there's a lot of buildup to Lee Corso's final show coming up from Columbus this Saturday. But I do have to say, I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get College game day live from Dublin on Saturday. But it was still fun to get back. And, I watched the Lee Corso special ahead of the game. So
I teared up. I teared up watching it.
I did too. The scene of him in the theater,
that got me.
Watching all of
I actually broke on that one.
The colleagues, the players he's covered, talk about his impact on the game of college football. If you haven't watched it, Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. It was fantastic. So that at least made me feel like I had College game day. I watched that whole thing just before kickoff of Farmageddon on Saturday.
It's only right. But we had to settle for college football countdown instead of game day on Saturday morning. And they were there last year. I was shocked they weren't there this year, but they will be back in full force. And to be honest, I'm not emotionally prepared despite watching that Lee Corso documentary. I'm still not prepared for Saturday and what it might do to my emotions.
Yeah, it's going to be a tearjerker on Saturday. I mean, you already saw the emotion from Kirk Herbstreit from Lee Corso. Going to be a special one in Columbus coming up on Saturday. But we did get college football. We got Farmageddon, top 25 matchup, huge Big 12 implications, playoff implications, Kansas State, Iowa State. And man, Parker, was that game sloppy to start off. And I get it. The field conditions weren't great. It was raining. This is week 0. These guys are playing football for the first time in a live setting in 7 or 8 months. So I get it. It wasn't going to be perfect, but oh my goodness, the drops, the fumbles down in the red zone. It was a mess early on, but we did get some fireworks later on. It ended up being a great game, but that first half, it felt like no one could hold on to the football.
The way the football gods intended Big 12 football should be played. Iowa State, Kansas State, Farmageddon. I don't like the fact that it was in Dublin. I'd prefer that site to be in either Ames or Manhattan when it's snowing, but I guess this will have to do for now. It was college football. I'll watch it, but man, it was sloppy. 2 fumbles by each team in the first half, a muffed punt. I mean, it was rough, but I think what we should get out of this was Iowa State's quarterback Rocco Becht. If you're a box score watcher, you probably weren't impressed, but watching him play, I thought he was an X factor in the game. And the Big 12 quarterbacks this year, I've been pounding the drum. I feel like it's so underrated. There are so many great quarterbacks in the Big 12 that no one talks about. I brought up Sawyer Robertson from Baylor, and Connor looked at me like I had 3 heads. I'm like, you don't know who that is? There are some great quarterbacks in the Big 12.
Yeah, and yet Baylor Auburn, is that Friday night?
Friday night.
So
Fox, 7 p.m. on Fox.
That's a game like Hugh Freeze at Auburn. If he wants to keep himself off the hot seat, that's a game you have to win. Like as an SEC school, you've got to win these power non-conference games. But I don't know. Baylor's a sleeper to win the Big 12 this year. I agree with you though. I thought Rocco Becht, it wasn't perfect. Like he tossed the first fumble at the goal line. I don't really know whose fault that was. It was kind of just a mess of a play. And then he got sacked, lost the football later on in the first half. But overall, he made the plays when they needed him to. He made a couple of unbelievable throws into the end zone on go routes that led to touchdowns. And then that 4th and 2. I mean, Matt Campbell putting it all on the table right there. You had an opportunity. There was about a minute 45 left, and Kansas State was out of timeouts. You could have just kicked a field goal, made it a 6-point game. Trust your defense that has been really good all day, except for maybe 1 or 2 busted plays here and there. But he said, you know what? we're going to trust our offense. We get 2 yards and we can kneel this out. And great play design, dropped it off into the flats for the running back, initially called a touchdown, but ended up allowing
just short at the one.
Iowa State to just kneel it out for a 24-21 win. That was, in terms of a way to start college football, I don't think you could have asked for much more from Farmageddon.
And how about Matt Campbell? He's the winningest coach in Iowa State history. It's not a high bar, but he's taken that program to places that they never thought they could. He's taken a pay cut so that his assistant coaches could get paid more money so he could stay there. He's gotten NFL interest. He's gotten other Power 4 interest, and he's decided to stick around. And isn't that what everybody wants to see in college football, is loyalty like that?
Yeah, I mean, Matt Campbell, I'm sure there have been opportunities for him to take a step up, because Iowa State in the larger landscape of college football is not viewed as a tier 1 job, probably not even a tier 2 job, but he has been loyal. He has turned that program into a perennial contender in the Big 12. And man, what a game on Saturday. I thought Avery Johnson was solid. He made some big plays. That throw down the field right after Iowa State made it a 10-point game for the first time. He came right back and threw a touchdown pass to get him back within 3. Would have been cool to see him get a chance to go win it down the stretch. But overall, it was a good game. I think both those teams are good. Do I think either of those teams are playoff good at this point? Maybe not. But Iowa State, that is a huge data point for them, because that is a neutral site game. Although I guess Kansas State was technically the home team.
I think they were.
Dave Pasch on the broadcast was talking about how they flew in their whole game ops crew. So like it was their PA announcer and their video board crew. All that was Kansas State, even though the game was being played in Dublin. So I think that's a huge win for Iowa State. Who knows if it ends up having an impact on the college football playoff, but the way the Big 12 was last year, where down the stretch, there were 1,000 scenarios of who could get into the Big 12 title game. That is an important tiebreaker to have between Iowa State and Kansas State, because odds are, could the Big 12 get 2 in? Sure. But odds are it's going to be just the champion. You've got to get yourself into the title game. That's a big win.
And the margins in the Big 12 are so razor thin. The difference between going 10-2, 9-3, and 5-7, it was so razor thin.
Yep.
But I think it was a huge win for Iowa State. I certainly think we could see them back in the Big 12 championship game. But I think it's time that we have a tough conversation about Avery Johnson. I think the expectations on Avery Johnson, I believe he was crowned a little bit too early, kind of how the media did with Nico Iamaleava last year. I mean, he was getting Johnny Manziel comparisons, and he can certainly run the ball. You certainly want to see him throw the ball a little bit better. He did have a pretty solid game, but I just didn't feel like he was an X factor, a game changer at all. And he's still a really good quarterback. And I think that's more so on the media for crowning him too early than necessarily himself. He's still a really good quarterback. I just don't think he's a game changer.
Yeah. And it is funny if you look at Avery Johnson's stat line, and this is why you can't scout box scores, because Avery Johnson completed 70% of his passes for 9 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns through the air, no interceptions, and 1 touchdown on the ground. Like, if you scout box scores, you would have thought Avery Johnson had a phenomenal game, and Rocco Becht only completed 50% of his passes, 6.5 yards per attempt, and he fumbled twice. Like, if you look at the box scores, you think Avery Johnson outplayed Rocco Becht, but in the big moments, Rocco came through, and it was cool. The shots of his dad in the stands, former first-round pick Anthony Becht. Like, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Go see your son play in Dublin. He came through in the biggest moment. Matt Campbell talked about how he trusted his quarterback. I don't want – was it fake, the Avery Johnson brother and dad fighting outside the stadium?
I was wondering when we were going to address that. That was real.
That was real.
They put out a statement yesterday about
I was going to say, because I saw the video and I was like, is this real, or is this somebody just making stuff up and saying this is his dad and brother? I guess things got heated in the Johnson household after that.
It was real. Him and his brother, they put out a joint statement yesterday. It was very real. I thought it was fake at first as well, but when I saw On 3 Pete Nakos reporting that they released a statement,
funny. You can't trust what's on the internet completely, but I guess that one was real. Kansas State will look to bounce back. They have North Dakota next week, and then a couple of tough games. You got Army, you got Arizona, Baylor coming up on the schedule. So Kansas State's going to have to turn things, around quickly. For Iowa State, looking at their upcoming schedule, I believe they play Arizona. No, they play South Dakota next week and then Iowa in their first big non-conference game. So lots to look forward to for the Big 12 and a fun game in Farmageddon on Saturday morning. Another big game late in the day for week 0. That's what's great about week 0. I wish we had better games, but we started in Dublin, Ireland, and you went completely around the globe to Hawaii for the final game of the day between Stanford and Hawaii. And I know this was kind of overdone on the broadcast, but the story of the Hawaii kicker is unbelievable. And we will talk about that coming up next here on the program. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. You can text or call. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is for Homegrown Tap Room and Kitchen in Donaldson. Homegrown Tap Room and Kitchen, a beloved neighborhood hub, featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives, offers a gourmet twist on comfort food, and you can enjoy one of their 24 taps of craft beer selections, wine, and unique canned cocktails. Get half off a $100 gift card now at thegamenashville.com while supplies last. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday morning. Titans got the win on Friday night in their preseason finale. Brian Callahan now 5-1 in preseason games. We'll have more on the Titans coming up in just a bit, including looking at the 53-man roster. How many spots are up for grabs? Who might take them? And how many might be replaced by waiver claims? That's coming up later on in the show. But more on college football. Week 0 over the weekend. We talked about the big game of the day, Farmageddon, top 25 matchup in Dublin. The day ended on the other side of the world with Stanford and Hawaii. Hawaii, the Bows, capped the day with a walk-off field goal. Parker, have you seen the story about their kicker? I know they talked about this a lot on the broadcast, so I don't want to belabor the point. I know it was kind of overdone. But Kansei Matsuzawa, believe that's correct, from Japan.
Pretty good pronunciation right there.
He learned how to kick on YouTube. He was a soccer player from Japan who came over on a visit. He saw an NFL game and decided he wanted to learn how to kick a football. Then he went to Hocking College in Ohio, transferred to Hawaii in 2023, redshirted, and then kicked the game-winning field goal to beat Stanford in week 0. Unbelievable story. And obviously, I don't think he ends up being like an NFL kicker. There's only 32 of those jobs. They don't come open very often. But to have that story of just, hey, one day I want to learn something on YouTube and turning that into a Division I scholarship, that's awesome.
Just shows that if you want something bad enough, you can make it happen. I watched that entire game, and it was fantastic. It was everything that I would hope it would be.
And Stanford, I mean, Andrew Luck has taken over that program as the general manager. Also, happy anniversary yesterday to Titans fans, as Andrew Luck retired 6 years ago yesterday. I know that was a big day for Titans fans out there. I remember celebrating in my apartment in college. Andrew Luck has taken over that program, and it seems like he wants to rebuild it from the studs. Like, he wants to just completely tear it down. He fired their head coach midway through the offseason, I want to say, like post-spring practice. So
right after spring ball.
I don't think Stanford's going to be very good this year.
No.
There's a chance that they only end up with 1 or 2 wins. Hawaii could have been one of them, but the Bows get the win on the field goal. I mean, just imagine, like, I've looked at YouTube for stuff like, stuff on my car. Like, oh, I got to change my taillight. Like, can you help me with that? Like, all that cooking, exactly. But to turn one of those same things of like, oh, I want to teach myself to kick. I believe he said it was Jason Myers, the Seattle Seahawks kicker, was the one that he watched. And to teach yourself how to kick and turn that into an education is just awesome. And I know it was overdone on the broadcast, but Kansei Matsuzawa coming through to wrap up what was a fun week 0. Other highlights from week 0 college football, and Dan Mullen. I know they controlled that game against Idaho State, but that's a lot closer for UNLV. 38-31, not great. And then Kansas taking care of business against Fresno State, against Kurt Warner's son at quarterback for the Bulldogs.
I have 2 takeaways. So for that first game, the UNLV, you want to know who they're starting? Do you know who their starting quarterback is? Well, I guess they have 2 right now. They ran a dual quarterback.
I think I do, but I'm blanking.
Alex Orji,
right.
Michigan transfer,
Virginia Tech commit. At one point.
Yeah, and someone that's very near and dear to your heart, I'm sure, Virginia quarterback transfer, Anthony Calandria.
Right, Calandria, yeah. Calandria, who came out and was like, we're going to turn the tide and we're going to beat the Hokies every single year.
Yep, that guy.
Never beat the Hokies, and now he's gone.
He is now in Las Vegas. So Idaho State actually was up. I think they were up by 4. They were either up by 4 or it was a touchdown, but UNLV really sweated that one out.
Yep.
But, hey, I guess a win is a win. If you're beating Idaho State, sure. Right. Then the Fresno State Kansas game, that was actually fireworks in the first quarter, but Kansas ran away with it after that. I will say Kansas, I believe, will win at least 8 to 9 games, be in Big 12 contention if they get a healthy Jalen Daniels all year.
Hey, Kansas, they have pulled themselves up from the absolute cellar of power conference football. They were horrible for so long. Lance Leopold there, the former Buffalo coach, and they have figured it out. They're 1-0 after a win over Fresno State. We are now 3 days away from week 1. Thursday night. Is there any big games Thursday night, Parker? I know
Boise State plays, but
right.
they play USF. USF is a pretty good group of 5 team.
Yeah.
I think Missouri plays.
Yeah, I think I saw that too. And then Friday night, Colorado is on the field. And we mentioned that Auburn-Baylor game. You've got East Carolina, NC State on Thursday night too. A couple other games.
Duke plays.
Elon, Minnesota, Buffalo.
Nebraska, Cincinnati.
Man, so there's a lot of games on Thursday night. I didn't realize how many games there were. And then, Friday night, Georgia Tech, Colorado, Auburn, Baylor, UNLV, Sam Houston, 2 teams who have already played in week 0. And then Saturday, the great slate for Labor Day weekend starts with Texas, Ohio State, top 5 matchup. You got a top 10 matchup between LSU and Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami the next day, Bill Belichick's debut on Monday. Going to be a great week of college football. 5 straight days of college football. Parker, your Tennessee Volunteers, number 24 in the country. They got Syracuse in Atlanta, 11 a.m. on Saturday. How you feeling 5 days out from the opener for Josh Heupel and crew?
I will say I'm feeling pretty good just because I know Syracuse lost a lot of production from last year's team. Their 2 best players that were actually retained in the spring actually left. Trevor Pena going to Penn State. Their best defensive player went to Texas. So they lost a lot of production. I'm feeling pretty good. I think Tennessee will win this one. And I was actually watching a little bit of film yesterday on Joey Aguilar and Nico Iamaleava because that's what I do this time of year. But I actually feel that Joey Aguilar can have a better statistical season in Tennessee's offense this year than Nico Iamaleava.
No, it's fair. I mean, you look back at Nico's season, and it wasn't all that inspiring. And I know we make a big deal about Nico leaving, and I think it's less about Nico as the player rather than Nico was your starting quarterback. Like, it doesn't matter how good your starting quarterback was. If he's your starting quarterback and he leaves mid-spring practice, that puts you in a bind. But I could see it. Like Nico, it was what? He threw 4 touchdowns against Vandy?
Yeah, he had 19 total.
Right.
And I think 11 of which came against non-Power 4 teams.
Right, because was it Bowling Green or Ball State?
Kent State was one of them.
Kent State when they went up like 40-0 in the first quarter.
Chattanooga was in there. I can't remember the other team. Here's the thing: like Nico, he overthrew a lot of receivers, which was a problem that Joe Milton had, and he was very conservative because he'd make one read, feel a little bit of pressure, then escape the pocket when there wasn't a need to escape the pocket. And you look at Joey Aguilar, who's a true gunslinger and will take those chances. Now, sometimes it may get picked off, but at least he takes those chances.
It's a good point. And I wouldn't be shocked if Joey Aguilar does have a better statistical season than Nico Iamaleava. We'll see what Tennessee is able to do. Other highlights on Saturday, Alabama, Florida State. Thomas Castellanos going to have a chance to back up his words that they're going to beat Alabama in week 1. It's been an interesting offseason for Thomas Castellanos. And Vandy starts the season against Charleston Southern over there at First Bank Stadium. I got to say, I was over in First Bank on Friday afternoon. The stadium's looking good. It is. No more. We are 2 years removed almost to the day from the dangling scoreboard in that Hawaii game. And it's looking good over there. Looks like it should be just about ready for game time on Saturday.
Now, remind me, did they take out some seats in order to put those stadium, or did they put in more seats?
So it's less seats, but it's the premium seating option. So
Gotcha.
They took out the bleachers on both end zones, and now they have kind of these suites, and it allows for people to have a better experience, even though maybe less people are in the stadium. So
I will say I've seen pictures of it. It looks really good despite taking out less seats. It looks really good.
Well, it was cool last year when the college football video game came out because they sent the renderings in. And so you could see what it would look like. And usually the renderings, I was talking to Andrew Allegretta about this, that usually the renderings aren't spot on, but it looks pretty much exactly like you'd expect.
To me.
I was joking with Andrew that the college football video game, they should put in a Vanderbilt construction site option if you want to play there. Like, in some of these video games, you can play in classic stadiums. College football needs to put in Vanderbilt finished, Vanderbilt unfinished. So you can see the swinging scoreboard on the cranes if you want to.
If you want a realistic point of view or a realistic game-like experience, yes.
I would love it. And going to be fun. I'll be out there on Saturday at First Bank Stadium, Vanderbilt taking on Charleston Southern before they head on the road for back-to-back weeks, taking on Virginia Tech and South Carolina. Those two teams will play on Sunday. LSU Clemson again is the night game on Saturday night, and then Notre Dame Miami on Sunday. Going to be a beautiful weekend of college football. And then after that, we've got college and NFL football for basically the next 3 or 4 months. It's
so beautiful.
It's beautiful. We finally made it, everyone. We have made it back to football season. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Back into the Titans coming up next. I was in the stadium on Friday night, and I just have some thoughts on, this has nothing to do with the team on the field, some thoughts on the presentation, I guess I could say, of the Tennessee Titans. We'll talk about that next. And then in the 11 o'clock hour, we'll go through roster math. The 53-man roster is due in just over 24 hours. Who makes it? How many spots are up for grabs? And who could be replaced by a waiver claim? We'll get into all of that throughout the rest of the show. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Monday morning following the Titans' final preseason game and week 0 of college football. We are firmly into football season now. Full slate of college football coming up this weekend. The NFL is now just 10 days away. Cowboys-Eagles starting up the season next Thursday. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. You can text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Now, I was at the game on Friday night. I did leave early third quarter. Wanted to get home a little early, but I did stay, watched all of Cam Ward, and watched most of what Brandon Allen did. And I had a couple of thoughts leaving the stadium, not about the team, but about the presentation. And the first off is whatever the opposite of growing on me is, that is what the Titans uniforms are doing. I said shrinking on me. I don't know if that's the possible, but when they first released the uniforms, I really liked them. Like, I thought it was a needed change. The Titans had the same jerseys with the white helmets for years. And I mean, since the team moved here. And I really liked them when they came out. And I think every year I like them a little bit less. And I'm very excited that they're going to be getting new jerseys coming up soon. I believe Warren Moon spoiled it and said it's probably going to align with the new stadium. They need new uniforms because every year I see them, I'm like, man, these are not good. They need to rebrand, get a fresh look. And I know Warren Moon said it's going to have some Oiler-ish look to it. And I think that's the right way to go.
I'm not sure I'm a fan of the numbers, the way the numbers look on the jersey.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. The navy blue helmet, the light blue jersey, and the white pants kind of threw me off in terms of color. I don't know.
I think it's the helmet. I think I don't like the navy blue helmet, and maybe that's the main thing. The other thing is the sword, the gray shoulders. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of that. Like, I don't know what it is. But every year I think I like them a little bit less. And that was just one of those thoughts I had in the stadium on Friday night. I'm looking down at the Titans sideline and watching all these guys in the uniform. I'm like, man, I don't love these jerseys anymore. And I do hope that when they do make a change, I hope that it is more Oilers-like, maybe bring a little bit of the original Titans look back. Like, I'm looking here in studio, we've got all of these bobbleheads, and I do like the original Titans look with the two-tone blue. You've got the navy main part of the jersey and the light blue shoulders. I think that's a better look. And I know they've said they're going to go to quote-unquote Titans blue as their main color. So maybe that is the Oiler-ism of it, but I wouldn't mind going back to the two-tone of the light blue as your main color, navy blue shoulders, and maybe throw a little bit more of a pop of red in there. Like, I think that's better. I think there's too much gray in these uniforms.
I want to see some alternates because I know all these other NFL teams like the Lions, they have black alternates with like the Hawaiian blue, and the lion is black. And then Houston has some crazy alternates. The Minnesota Vikings have an all white. The Green Bay Packers have an all white. Why can't we see the Titans get an all white as an alternate? I would personally love that.
Right. The all whites look good, but they looked better with the white helmets. The Stormtrooper look of, the 2000s and most of the 2010s, that was a good look. And I think it looks fine with the navy helmet, but it doesn't look nearly as good. So that was my first main gripe with presentation. The second one, I went into that stadium hoping, praying that when the Titans scored a touchdown, I didn't hear those trumpets for Ring of Fire. And I was sadly disappointed. I don't want this to go into Jake hates Johnny Cash. I like Johnny Cash. I think bringing back the Pain Train and Folsom Prison Blues at the end of the third quarter, that's awesome. And I think Ring of Fire is a great song. It's not what I want to hear after the Titans score a touchdown. It doesn't get the crowd hype. Like, I get it. The Titans wanted to incorporate Johnny Cash and country music. I do not like it. And I was really hoping going into that game that I wouldn't see, after the first touchdown, look up at the video board and see those three guys playing the trumpet and I was sadly disappointed. I make this a plea, and if you're out there and disagree with me, let me know, 615-737-1025. But the Titans need a better touchdown song than Ring of Fire.
If you're wanting to get the crowd hyped up, and is Ring of Fire a great song? Yes. Is it a great touchdown song? Not necessarily. If you want to get the crowd hype, you don't play somber, monotone music. You play something a little upbeat.
I mean,
get the crowd hype.
I think the trumpets are a little bit upbeat, but it's just not. It's missing
It's not
something.
working.
It's not working. And I thought that was pretty evident after the first full year of it, but clearly not. I think they need to change that up. Again, I don't know. I don't have a solution to this. Like, I don't have a song in mind that I think would be better, but it can't get much worse, right? Like, without playing like the sound of silence after a touchdown or something like that. I don't know. I just, as soon as I heard the trumpets, I was like, okay, they're doing it again. Wes in Clarksville asked, do they still do the annoying 300 first down chant? Yes, they do. The who, which I don't hate. I think it's turned into like an actual tradition for Titans home games to do that. So I'm fine with that. I'm not a huge fan of the Ring of Fire. It's a fine song. Like, love Johnny Cash. Keep Johnny Cash involved. If you want to do Folsom Prison Blues, or do something with God's Gonna Cut You Down early. I know that's a lot of teams use that as like a walkout song. Like, that's fine. Do that. But Ring of Fire, it doesn't get me going. And honestly, that was the main thing. And it was funny. I was sitting next to my fiance, and I immediately, as soon as it started playing, I was like, oh God, they brought it back. And she's like, why do you care? I'm like, I don't know. I want to come to the game. And when the team scores a touchdown,
because you're a fan, that's why you
right,
care.
like, I want to feel the atmosphere and the crowd getting excited. And obviously a touchdown's always going to excite the crowd, but it just doesn't feel like it matches the feeling, right? Like, you can use Ring of Fire for something else, but it doesn't feel like it matches the feeling in the stadium when the trumpets start playing. We're getting some ideas here for what the Titans could use as a touchdown song. And actually, let's put that out there for the text line here. Do you have a better touchdown song for the Titans? 615-737-1025. Jay from Laverne says, turn down for what? That one might be overused.
No.
I'm not a huge fan of that one.
As a Tennessee Vols fan, no.
I don't have we don't have our wrestling expert here, Connor Newt, who it's his first day of classes. Shout out Connor Newt.
He would have a great song in mind, I'm sure.
Merle from Mount Juliet says Cody Rhodes' entry song Kingdom. I'm not familiar. So maybe
Cody Rhodes? Is that a wrestler?
Yeah, it's a wrestler.
Yeah.
I know it's a wrestler. I just don't know the song. 7410 says, I 100% agree with the touchdown music. It's embarrassing throwing in a half-empty stadium and the whole thing looks so high school. I do have to say the crowd looked pretty good on Friday night. We had a texter earlier, and I wanted to get back to this. Skylar says, I was at the game Friday. Were you surprised by how many fans were there? There were a lot of Vikings fans, but I was impressed by the crowd. Yes, I was impressed by the crowd too. It is a lot of Vikings fans because as somebody who spent 2 summers in Minnesota, I know that Minnesotans, any excuse to go party and, have a weekend drinking on Broadway, they're going to go do it. And they had an opportunity. Come see the team play on Friday night and have a weekend in Nashville. So there were a lot of Vikings fans there, but I thought the Titans fans showed up too to come see Cam Ward's debut. 615-737-1025. Chris and Dixon with a really good point here. The Titans brass needs to go to a Preds game and hear how hyped the fans get on a goal. I agree. The Preds have found a great goal song. The Tim McGraw, I like it. I love it. I think it's perfect. And not that the Titans need to do exactly that, but they need to find something like that. I think they threw a dart at the board with Ring of Fire and it didn't hit. I would like to see them change it up. They had the opportunity to. It's only been one preseason game. Maybe they switch it up, but I'm not a fan of the Ring of Fire as the touchdown song. 615-737-1025. If you have thoughts on what would be a better touchdown song for the Titans than Ring of Fire, we'd love to hear from you. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Do want to mention some breaking news here around the NFL. Jordan Schultz reporting the Commanders and all-pro wide receiver Terry McLaurin have agreed to a 3-year extension worth over $96 million. The deal is done, and Scary Terry gets his well-deserved payday. So that is big news for the Commanders. Terry McLaurin is back in the saddle, and he is going to be ready for week 1 for the Commanders after signing his new extension. So breaking news there, Terry McLaurin sticking around in D.C. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll keep it going here. Send in your thoughts. What is a better Titans touchdown song than Ring of Fire? We'll get to those coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up here on this Monday morning, 102.5 The Game. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on this Monday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. I had some thoughts on the Titans game presentation on Friday night, and I was hoping every time the Titans got close, getting down towards the red zone. When they score a touchdown, please do not play the trumpets. And they did. Ring of Fire is back, at least for now, as the Titans touchdown song. So we asked the question to all of you, what is a better touchdown song the Titans could go with? 615-737-1025. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Steve is on the line with the thoughts. Steve, thanks for calling. What's up?
Well, I think the Ring of Fire is kind of in relation to the Ring of Fire on the emblem of the helmet. I think the horns blowing is fine because it's no different than going to a college game and you hear the horns blowing, whatever they're going to blow.
That's fair.
So I don't really have a problem with it.
Well, thanks for the call, Steve. I get what you're saying. And I guess I didn't think of it like that with the fireball and the Ring of Fire. I mean, I guess that's something. I just don't think it matches the feeling in the stadium. Like if the Titans score a big touchdown late in the game to take the lead, is the trumpets and Ring of Fire what you want to hear in that moment? I don't think so. And I think an awesome idea is what we've got from Matthew in Nashville and Josh from White House. Burn It to the Ground, Nickelback. Bring it back. I think that is an awesome touchdown song. And you can have your thoughts on you can have your thoughts on Nickelback, but that is a song that matches the feeling when your team scores a touchdown. Just, it fires you up. I think it matches the roar of the crowd. I think that's a great one. Greg Roberts says The Glorious Sons, The Union. Can't say I'm familiar with that one. Maybe I know it and just don't recognize the title. But I think there are plenty of other options other than Ring of Fire. Not that I'm saying it's the worst touchdown song of all time. I just don't think it fits the feeling. And it did make me kind of roll my eyes when I heard it on Friday night. Drew says bodies hit the floor. How crazy would that be? Just get some screamo rock going right after the Titans score a touchdown. Here's a good idea in our YouTube chat. It's Music City. Literally just pay for a Titans touchdown jingle from someone. They could do a best Titans touchdown song gets a reward type competition. I kind of like that. You could even do it like have people send in the demos of this of their touchdown song and let the fans vote on it, and the winner gets to perform it live at the first Titans game or something like that. Like, because a lot of Music City for these up and coming artists who would be submitting these songs is the exposure. So it's like, hey, if you can write a Titans touchdown song that fits, then you can come perform it in front of 70,000 people or whatever it is on a Sunday. 7653 says, don't have a touchdown song, but preface something with the Joker Heath Ledger clip. Rack 'em up, rack 'em up, rack 'em up. I kind of like it. I mean, I think there are options. I didn't hate the throw at the dartboard last year with Ring of Fire. Like, it was something new. It was fresh, but I just don't think it hit. And I think there are better options that you could go to.
Was that Get Loud, Tighten Up song the touchdown song a couple years ago? Am I remembering that correct?
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. Like
that one got old about after a year, I'd say.
Yeah, so maybe that's what you would get with the competition. I'm all in on Nickelback. I think that's that's Burn It to the Ground is such a, like, it just gets you going.
And I'm in favor of, like, the texter from the YouTube chat paying somebody in Music City to do it. Jelly Roll. Could you imagine Jelly Roll recording a song? And that's the perfect person.
I will give the Titans credit. Jelly Roll did the open, the like hype video right before the team came out. And that video was awesome. If anybody else was in the stadium on Friday night and saw it, I have to say, I thought that was a great open video. I think it got people going. You had Jelly Roll in it. It featured all of the best players. I thought that was fantastic. So shout out to the Titans video crew, the game presentation. I thought the intro was great. Also, I wrote this down on the grid because I thought it was so funny. There's a new, like, in-game game they do in between breaks with Whataburger called Beat the Freak. And so it's Javon Curse playing in these little competitions against current Titans players. And the referee wearing a full referee getup with a Whataburger logo on it is Jim Wyatt. And it was awesome. I thought that was great. Jim Wyatt being the Whata ref, I think is what they called him, was fantastic. So I don't want this to seem like I'm bashing the Titans in-game presentation because I did like a lot of the stuff they did. I just think Ring of Fire it wasn't the song that I wanted to hear after the Titans pushed it into the end zone. And that was in a preseason game. Can you imagine when the team eventually is playing in a huge game at home and scores a go-ahead touchdown in the final minute? We need a song that fits that moment. Because Ring of Fire may be fine for a preseason game, but I'm not a huge fan of it for when you actually get to play real football.
I want to hear Jelly Roll. If he had a song or something, I'd want to hear that.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, Jelly Roll, he spoke to the team. He's doing the intro video. Why not get him for that? Wes from Hermitage says, I'd rather have the Paul Feinbaum theme show song than Ring of Fire. I don't care what they do,
are you sure you mean that?
Yeah, that I have listened to that theme song way too many times being here in the studio when it plays, and I would disagree with that. Give me Ring of Fire 1,000 times over the Paul Feinbaum show. Josh says Brooks and Dunn did one with the Oilers, just have to change to Titans. Not a bad idea. Justin from Greenbrier says you could do what the Preds did and go to Jason Aldean and have him modify Crazy Town. It is a song specifically talking about Nashville, and they could flip it to talk about Titans scoring touchdowns. That's a good idea too. I like that of get an artist involved and you can find a song that fits, but flip it to encapsulate what you're looking for from the Titans. 5298 says, bring back My Sharona. That's Taylor and Bellevue. That one's good. 1811 says 100% on the Ring of Fire comment was cool once, but no hype whatsoever. That's exactly what I'm thinking is I think there was moments when it was cool. And last year when they first did it, I don't think I hated it initially. I was at the Jets game. So that was the first time they did it for a regular season game, at least. And I didn't hate it, but it did not grow on me. Just like the uniforms, I think it has slowly gotten worse. I'd like to hear a new touchdown song. I don't know if they'll do it this year because I feel like once you get it started, it's hard to pivot at this point because, those game ops people, they have their scripts and they've been working on this all off season. So I don't think it's going to change this year, but I'd like for next year, maybe for the new stadium at least, I'd love to get a new touchdown song and some great ideas here on the text line. I still think Nickelback, Burn It to the Ground is my favorite so far. That was a great one from Matthew in Nashville and Josh from White House. Nickelback, maybe not the most beloved band, but they do have some hype songs that could get you after the touchdown. Again, I liked the intro video. I thought the intro video was awesome with Jelly Roll. Do something like that. Something like that would be perfect. And Jim Wyatt as the What a Ref was maybe the highlight of my night over there at the Titans preseason game on Friday. Before we wrap up this conversation, because we are going to get into Titans roster math coming up next. We're going to go through how many players are locked in, how many spots are up for grabs, and where the waiver claims could come. We'll do that coming up next. But first, let's go back to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. James is on the line wanting to talk Titans touchdown song. James, thanks for calling. What's your thoughts on what could replace Ring of Fire?
Well, sir, I hate to tell you, I'm ignorant about who sang it or anything, but it was that song, We Want to Fight for the Right to Party.
There you go.
Because that song gets everybody going, no matter whether they like that kind of music or not. It gets you going.
I like it. I know that's what the Chiefs love to do. Because Travis Kelce yelled that after they won the Super Bowl. I don't know if they use that for their touchdowns, but I know that that's kind of one of their things, and it gets people going. People love it. So I like that idea.
Well, thank you. That was my thing, and I appreciate y'all.
Yep. Thanks for the call, James. Great thoughts on what the Titans could replace Ring of Fire with as a touchdown song. Casey and Gallatin says Walk by Pantera. And 0835, this one will be a controversial one. And I think a lot of people wouldn't like this. Broadway Girls by Morgan Wallen.
Oh.
I'm not so sure about that one. I think there would be a certain demographic of the fan base that wouldn't hate that. I think a lot of people wouldn't like that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Great interaction here. I don't love Ring of Fire. I think they should replace it. If anybody's listening out there who can change it, we got some good ideas on our text line. Our listeners are very smart with what could replace it, because I didn't have a solution for this. Like I just wanted to come on here and say it disappointed me that they stuck with Ring of Fire. It seems like our listeners have better ideas for what could replace it. 615-737-1025. Let's get back into what's actually happening on the football field coming up next. The Titans have to cut down their roster from 90 to 53 by 3 p.m. tomorrow. I went through and found out how many players are locked in. There's no chance they miss the roster. There's a couple of spots up for grabs. We'll look at where those spots could go, who could take them, and how long they may be on the roster, with the Titans having the top waiver priority. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday morning. Next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Third and final hour on this Monday morning. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5. The Game. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Appreciate all the interaction in the last hour, talking about what could be a better Titans touchdown song. We got some good ones out there from all of you listening. If you want to chime in, 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Our phone and text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Big story this week, of course, is Titans roster cut down to 53 tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon, Titans have to be down to 53. Already a couple of cuts being reported. Justin Mello reporting over the last hour that the Titans are releasing Joshua Bledsoe at safety and Davion Ross at cornerback. So a couple of moves in the defensive backfield. Neither of those guys, I think, were being projected to make the team anyway. So no surprises quite yet, but we'll keep you updated as the Titans make their cuts down to 53. Obviously, a very tough day across the NFL for all of the players out there. I'm sure it's not easy on the coaches. I mean, Parker, we've heard Brian Callahan talk about this, that this is the worst part of his job. You've got to cut 37 guys, and you can only bring a handful of those guys back on the practice squad. There's a chance that some of these guys you're cutting maybe will never play football again. So obviously we talk about this, and it can be fun to try and put the puzzle pieces in place and see who makes the 53, but these are people's livelihoods here. So obviously thinking about everybody who does get cut and hoping that they have a great next opportunity wherever that may end up.
You're basically telling somebody that their lifelong childhood dream will not be fulfilled, at least for the time being right now. I was telling TD on Thursday that I do not envy this job whatsoever. I would hate it. I would hate this part of the job.
It is tough. And like, you watch Hard Knocks and they have the cameras in the room when these cuts are being made, and the coaches, they try and rip it off like a Band-Aid as much as possible. Like, they sit down, they tell them, and usually it's, we're going to try and get you back on the practice squad, but it's still tough. And yeah, I agree. Don't envy it at all. The Titans have to get down to 53 by tomorrow afternoon, and everybody's making their 53-man roster predictions. I'm not going to go through one by one and put my 53 in place, because a lot of these are kind of givens. And I went through and just looked at, all right, I think there are 46 locks. I think you can go through on the team and say, these 46 guys, I would be stunned if any of them got cut. Maybe there's a couple, like, you're going to have two quarterbacks on the roster. And I did see Paul Kaharski in his 53 did mention that there's a chance maybe the Titans would consider Trevor Siemian over Brandon Allen as the backup. I'm going to put Brandon Allen in there, but they're going to have two quarterbacks. That's 46 spots when you go through the entire roster, which means 7 spots are up for grabs. And the way I'm looking at it is, now it becomes, all right, where do you want to use this depth? And to be honest, we talk about it a lot, how important the first waiver priority is. Where do you feel you can have some expendable pieces that can be replaced? So I do think out of those 7 spots, you're going to keep an extra tight end. I only have Gunnar Helm and Chigakonkwo as the locks at tight end. I think you would lean David Martin Robinson right now.
If I was general manager, I would want to do that.
But
that's just me.
It's not like David Martin Robinson he hasn't had the same training camp he had last year, where we were buzzing about him the entire time. But I do think, if I had to guess, it would be him. I think you're going to keep a 9th offensive lineman. I only have 8 as locks, probably going to be your swing tackle. So somebody like an Ali Udo, Jalen Duncan, John Ojukwu, I would give Udo the edge there. And then on the defensive side, safety is the only position where you feel like you've got 5 that are pretty much locked in. You're going to keep Hooker, Woods, Winston, Diggs, and then I think Mike Brown is a special teamer. The other 4 position groups on defense, it's everybody fighting for that last spot in the room. And honestly, there's a decent chance that even if you do get that last spot in the room tomorrow, you may not stick around very long. So I think you're fighting for 1 spot at D-line, 1 at edge, 1 at linebacker, 1 at corner. So that's 4 of your 7. And then you're just making decisions of, all right, do you want to keep a 7th wide receiver? Do you want to keep maybe an extra offensive lineman? Do you go with 4 tight ends? They kept 5 last year. So I think, or excuse me, they kept 4 last year, right? No.
They kept 5.
They kept
Thomas
5 to start. Odukoya was on
5th.
there, right? So they kept 5 last year. Do you keep a 4th tight end? Those are the questions that you have to ask. I think I would lean wide receiver. And just because the way Bones Fossil talked about Chim Dike as a punt returner last week, it doesn't seem like he's ready. We had the conversation about Van Jefferson at the beginning of the show. Van looked really good on Friday. And I think the situation with Van Jefferson and Alec Iamaner at X is similar to James Prochet and Chim Dike at punt returner of, hey, this guy's going to be a transitional piece. They're not ready to jump right in week 1 and be your starting X or be your starting punt returner. So this guy's going to hold down the fort until you are ready. And so that's why I think Prochet makes the team, because DK, although you haven't seen anything disastrous yet when he's been back there returning punts, he caught the ball. He did have the one that looked kind of awkward sliding against Atlanta. But I think you keep Prochet, you keep 7 wide receivers. The interesting conversation with keeping 7 wide receivers is what Robbie and Joe talked about this morning, and what Paul Kaharski has been saying is you're not going to have 7 wide receivers active on game days. So that makes it a really tough decision, because you're not going to scratch Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett. You're not going to scratch Van Jefferson, at least to start the season. Maybe later on, Alec Iamaner is going to be active. You have to have Bryce Oliver as a gunner. And if James Prochet is your punt returner, that means Chim Dike is probably going to have to be a healthy scratch early on in the season. And that's tough for a guy who you kind of hope is going to build up to be your big play speed threat down the field, and not giving him those opportunities on the field early in his rookie season. It's not exactly what you'd want, but if you don't feel comfortable having him be the punt returner, you're really left with no choice.
Absolutely. And Bones Fossil, he seemed hesitant about it, and that's why I think James Prochet is going to make this roster. I think he should be the primary punt return, kick return option.
Yes, and I think that means they keep 7. Probably means they only keep 3 tight ends, and it'll be Chig, Gunner, and likely David Martin Robinson. With the usage of Josh Wiley and Thomas Odukoya, I think you're probably going to see DMR get that last spot. Offensive line, you need a swing tackle, and that's the problem. You look at the offensive line, you've got the starting 5, obviously, and Blake Hance, Jackson Slater, Corey Levin. That's good interior depth. I think you feel fine if, first off, if Lloyd Cushenberry maybe isn't ready for the season, I think you feel fine with Corey Levin there. Or if Kevin Zeitler maybe gets banged up a little bit, I think you feel fine with Slater and Hance being able to fill in. But that third tackle, unless you want to push Blake Hance out to tackle, which still isn't comforting, Ali Udoh is at least experienced. And I think it's one of those things, coaches and managers across all sports, they tell you that, hey, we don't have to say what we think of these guys. How we use them is going to tell you what we think of these guys. And every time the Titans have taken one or both of their starting tackles off the field, it's been Ali Udoh who's taken their spot. I think that pretty much tells you who's going to make the roster.
Right. And then your other option is undrafted free agent Brandon Crenshaw Dixon. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think they keep 9, but you really got to focus on the interior too. Guys like Jackson Slater. I think John Ojukwu has an argument. Maybe Andrew Rupchich. This is going to be the tough part, is the offensive line.
Yeah, and I think it's Udoh. Rupchich could be in that conversation, but he's more interior. I do like Brandon Crenshaw Dixon as an undrafted guy. I think he ends up on the practice squad, but I think this ends the Jalen Duncan and John Ojukwu experience, which I think is probably a good thing for the Titans. Did see an old friend at tackle get cut loose. Leroy Watson is going to be out there on waivers. I don't think the Titans will be interested in a reunion, but the Titans, again, do have the first waiver claim priority, and likely will use that multiple times, if not a handful of times, over the next couple of days. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're doing roster math. We're going through, checking out what the Titans might do over the next 24 or so hours as they cut down to 53. The one thing that made it obvious to me, that became obvious to me as I was going through this process was, yeah, you've got your 46 locks, and that might be pretty much all of the NFL rosterable talent on this team right now. The drop off is steep, and that likely means a lot of these guys who make the initial 53 will be replaced. Where do those waiver claims come? We'll talk about that coming up next. Jake Lyman and Parker Kelly with you on this Monday morning. It's Next Man Up here on 102.5 The Game. Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday morning. Titans finishing up the preseason 2-1, a 23-13 win over the Vikings on Friday night. Now they look ahead to Denver, week 1 coming up just 13 days away. Titans will be up there in Mile High. Tough stretch to start the season with Broncos and Rams. Cam Ward will be tested immediately, but first things first, Titans have to cut down their roster to 53. And we're going through the roster math. I again went through and I came away with 46 locks on the roster. And I think out of the 7 spots remaining, you know that there are spots that have to go to one specific position. Like you're not going to keep just 4 edge rushers, 3 inside linebackers. Like you need to add at least one player there. But the one thing that really stood out to me when doing this is you get past those 46 locks and it's just not deep enough. There's just not enough NFL talent on this roster right now, which I do think the first waiver priority is a little overblown. But this is the important spot where you can use it, because there are, if I can do quick math in my head, 37 players from each team coming loose. That's what, like a 1,000 players that are coming free. There has to be a couple in there that you think can upgrade your team. So I think you're going to see, I think you set the over under at like 2.5 waiver claims for the Titans, and I would lean over on that. I'd say it probably ends up being 3 or 4, because you look at this team, I think the offensive side, you feel pretty good about where you are. Now, Tajay Spears, Terry McCormick reporting earlier this morning that he is likely to go on short-term IR once he's added to the 53. So I think running back is a spot where you could see a waiver claim, but you're likely not going to claim anybody at wide receiver or tight end. Probably not on the offensive line, unless somebody in one of those spots comes loose that you really weren't expecting. But on the defensive side, you can make an argument that a waiver claim might be necessary at every single spot except for safety. And corner is the one where they absolutely need a waiver claim. Whoever the best corner that, Mike Borgonzi, he's talked about how the last couple weeks, all he's done and all his scouting staff has done is watch these preseason games. I'm sure they found a corner that they have at least circled, or a couple of corners that they've at least circled who could come loose. You need to get one, because this cornerback room hinges a lot on L'Jarius Sneed and whether he is healthy, whether he is productive. Those are two big questions, and honestly, I don't know if I feel good about either of them. Roger McCreary, you like in the nickel. Jarvis Brownlee looks like he's taken a good step forward from year 1 to year 2. Darrell Baker's a fine depth piece. And Marcus Harris, the rookie out of Cal, has had his moments in the preseason. I don't know how good you feel if he has to play significant snaps for you.
And he'll be playing at nickel, too, behind Roger McCreary. I think that's his best spot. But these are your corners right now, as I have it on my roster projection. L'Jarius Sneed, Jarvis Brownlee, Darrell Baker, Gabe Jeudy-Lally. Gabe Jeudy-Lally was an undrafted free agent guy. He's been making plays in camp, but still. And then Jarvis Brownlee was pretty good as a rookie. He had some bad moments. Darrell Baker played pretty solid. I'd say he's this team's best corner. But L'Jarius Sneed, you just don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I like Gabe Jeudy-Lally. And I thought in the Falcons game, he made a couple of eye-opening plays. Outside of maybe Cedric Gray, I think he was probably the guy on defense who stood out the most to me in that game. And you could put Kendall Brooks in there too with the pick six. But Jeudy-Lally was playing coverage, and he was getting his nose in there in the run game. I would lean that he makes the roster. I just don't know how long he's there, because you look at the other options. We already, Justin Mello reporting that Davian Ross, one of the undrafted free agent corners the Titans signed, he is already, they're planning on releasing him. Jamari Harris is the other undrafted free agent they brought in from Iowa, who there was some buzz around him coming into camp because he was a talented guy. I think it was off the field concerns with him coming in. He hasn't really flashed much. And then your other options are Jalen Kimber and Amani Oruwariye, who, I mean, Oruwariye, he has flashed in a very bad way during the preseason. So I would not expect to see any of those last three guys. If I had to guess, I think it's Jeudy-Lally makes the team, and he might be one of those expendable pieces when waiver claims come through. At inside linebacker, it's kind of the same. I think you maybe don't need to make a waiver claim there, and maybe it depends on how they feel about Asamoah, the linebacker they claimed from Minnesota earlier in the preseason, because maybe he's the fourth guy if you like what he can do on special teams. But your other options there are Curtis Jacobs and Amari Burney. I do feel a lot better about the top of the inside linebacker room than I did at the beginning of the year, though, because heading into training camp, I think Cody Barton was a question mark, but he was the most solid thing you had in that room. Obviously, he's an NFL veteran who's played as a starter for multiple teams. So you at least felt decent about Cody Barton as an option. But Cedric Gray and James Williams were huge questions heading into training camp, and both of those guys have played well. I've been so impressed with Cedric Gray in these last two preseason games, but you probably do need a waiver claim at the back end of that room. Edge, you probably need a waiver claim unless you, Parker, you've been out there at practice. Like, do you feel decent about Ali Gay or Jalen Harrell as your fifth pass rusher there?
No, and that's what I'm struggling with because I'm actually going through this roster right now. I have Arden Key, Femi Aladejo, Draymond Jones, Jihad Ward, Ali Gay, and Jalen Harrell. But I feel very unconfident in that group.
Yeah, and then like the defensive line, I think your top four set: Simmons, Sweat, Joseph Day. James Lynch made a nice play.
I think it'll be James Lynch.
James Lynch, he got the hit on whoever was playing quarterback for the Vikings. Was it Brosmer or Brett Rippon? One of those two guys.
I think it was Max Brosmer. Yeah, I think that's
the rookie out of Minnesota. He was a Golden Gopher. James Lynch hit him. That led to the interception from James Williams at the goal line. So I think Lynch is your fourth defensive lineman. That's a fine fourth defensive lineman, but I think you'd like to keep five, especially since Tavondre Sweat probably isn't going to be 100% for game one. Maybe it's Carlos Watkins. Cam Horsley's had some moments, Timmy Horn, but like you don't feel great about that. The issue is I'm looking at these 7 spots that I don't think are locks. And I think one goes to James Prochet. I think one goes to a tight end. So that gets you down to 5. And one goes to an offensive tackle. So there you go. You're down to 4 open spots. 50, 51, 52, 53 are probably going to be one apiece at defensive line, edge, inside linebacker, corner. And there's a chance none of those guys end up on the week 1 roster.
Yeah, I'm doing the math back here, and I'm really struggling with offensive line because I have them keeping 8, but I tend to think that they're going to keep 9.
I think it has to be 9, right?
Because what happened? Because I have them taking Corey Levin, backup center, Jackson Slater, who can be your swing guard because you drafted him and spent a pick on him, and then Udo is your backup tackle.
So you don't have Hance in there?
I see. That's the thing. Like either Hance or Crenshaw Dixon. I think Crenshaw Dixon makes the practice squad. I would lean towards Hance, but I just don't know who to cut out. Like, do you keep 3 if you keep 3 tight ends, then that makes an extra roster spot for him.
I mean, I think you keep Hance because he's got that inside-outside versatility, which at least gives you a little bit more flexibility if somebody was to get hurt. But you do need a true swing tackle. And, I mean, Ali Udo is not a good true swing tackle, and I don't think you feel great if he has to go out there and play significant snaps. But I at least think he's the best of the options they have when compared to Jalen Duncan or John Ojukwu or Brandon Crenshaw Dixon. So I think they keep 9. It's your starting 5, and then Hance, Udo, Slater, Levin. I would guess, if I had to right now, that they make 4 waiver claims. And I know that's a big number, but I think you're going to see them make a waiver claim at 4 out of these 5 positions: running back, defensive line, edge, linebacker, corner. I think they make 4 claims for those 5 positions. And
say those again.
Running back, defensive line, edge, linebacker, corner.
Yeah, I'd have to agree because your defensive line, or it's really the edge rushers that I'm concerned about, because that group outside of Arden Key, like Femi's a rookie, but like Draymond Jones, Jihad Ward, Ali Gay, Jalen Harrell, I don't feel good about.
I mean, they've talked about they want to collapse the pocket from the interior. They have to actually follow through with that edge group, because I don't see anybody in that edge group getting more than 6 sacks. Like, is that a good number? Like, I think Jones and Key, maybe, because Key is such a streaky pass rusher. Like, he had that stretch of 2 or 3 games where he had 4 sacks, but then he disappeared for a month. So I think Key and Jones, you could see them get up to 6. Femi, I thought, looked better on Friday. Like, Femi, although I don't think he's where they want him to be, and I don't think he's going to be an immediate contributor for this team, but from preseason game to preseason game, I think he's improved each time.
Yeah, and I hear tons of people being overly critical. I mean, his job specifically, like in the first 3 preseason games, was having a wide outside rush to kind of collapse the pocket so other people could get the sacks and the numbers. So that's just playing complementary football. Are you in the camp of giving Femi some grace because he's not even a full year into playing the outside backer position?
Yeah, I mean, I said it when they drafted him that was not a draft pick for 2025. That's a draft pick for 2027. And you hope that this year, I always say I don't want to call it a redshirt year because that's not fair. They're going to have him playing, but I think they're not as worried about the production for Femi Oladejo this year than they are about the gradual improvement throughout the season. When Paul Kaharski was on with us last week or the week before, he was talking about how if Titans fans really want to see progress this year, you've got to pay attention to the minute details of like how Femi Oladejo's footwork and his hand placement improves from week to week. That's what it's going to be for Femi this year is the gradual improvement. You hope next year maybe can be a breakout year for him. And then he's one of your top pass rushers by 2027. I don't think this year is going to be a big year for Femi, but I do think it is encouraging that he's flashed more and more as we've gone from week to week in the preseason.
Yeah, no doubt. And they're throwing, Denard Wilson's talked about this over and over, but they're throwing the kitchen sink at him. They're having him out in coverage. They're having him rush the passer. They're having him try to stop the run. And with a guy, when you're converting him to outside backer full time, especially making the jump from UCLA to the NFL, you're just trying to see what sticks. And what sticks is what they're going to focus on when it comes to Femi Oladejo.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. If we'd love to hear from you. You can text or call our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Final 30 minutes of the show. It is going to be a busy week for the Two-Tone Blue. Cut down day tomorrow. Then they'll have waiver claims, a couple of practices leading into Labor Day weekend. And then after that, it's game week. You'll get a full game week with injury reports, everything coming up next week. Titans making their cut downs. We'll continue to talk roster math on the other side. Also had a couple of spare thoughts from Friday night's game against the Vikings on the defensive side of the ball. We'll get to that in these final couple of segments. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final couple of segments here on this Monday. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Next man up, 1025 The Game. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts on the Titans, their preseason finale on Friday night, or the roster cutdown, which happens tomorrow, or it'll be happening over the next 24 hours or so as the Titans get down from 90 to 53. Couple of thoughts on where the Titans might use their top waiver priority, because as we look through the roster, we realize that, the bottom 4 or 5 on this team probably could be upgraded somewhere. And I do understand the Brian Callahan, I thought, was asked a great question. I'm blanking on who asked the question of, trying to balance the idea of, this player might be a little bit more talented than what we have on the roster right now, but this guy's also been in this room for the last 6 months, and he's been in our culture and in our systems. I think that is important to note too. So I said 4 waiver claims. I wouldn't be shocked if it's less than that. I think anything more than 4 would be a lot and would, tip the hand a little bit at what Mike Borgonzi thinks of this roster if he is willing to make 5 waiver claims or more. I don't think it's going to happen. The Titans, again, I think mostly will be looking on the defensive side of the football. There really isn't a lot of depth anywhere except for safety and running back, with the news today that it's likely, according to Terry McCormick, that the Titans will start Tajay Spears on short-term IR. Looking at a possible replacement for him, I didn't see this yesterday, and, he may be past his prime, and I know there's been some issues internally with Cam Akers, but he was just cut from the New Orleans Saints. Maybe that's a guy they bring in. That's a shifty guy in the open field. Maybe could be a replacement for Tajay Spears for a couple of weeks. Amir Abdullah let go from the San Francisco 49ers. So a couple options already out there, and a lot more players going to be let go over the next 24 or so hours. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam from Portland is on the line wanting to chime in. Adam, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Jake, you didn't like the Jake from Hate Farm thing?
I didn't like that. I didn't think I was being a hater. I think,
I just really wanted to use it, honestly.
I'm glad you did. I'll use that from now on. Maybe we make it a segment where I just complain about something. Jake from Hate Farm.
I like it. Yeah, well, you might get sued, but yeah, no, that's cool. Hey, so here's my deal, man. I haven't really – has your opinion changed about anything from the preseason? Like mine, I'm just here like, okay, I'm a little more excited about Cam than I was. I'll say that, but I didn't walk away going we're going to be way worse, and I didn't walk away going we're going to be able to score. I still feel like people are going to do whatever they want to do on our defense until they prove to me that they can stop a real team with the ones. We don't even know what the ones look like. That's why I hated so much for Jeff to sit any time out, and if Devondre could have got his big butt out there, I would like to have seen it, because we have no idea what our one on defense looks like together, So like, I walk away just, I don't know, kind of confused about what it's going to look like, dude. Like, if they could surprise us to a 10-win season or something, and I wouldn't know. I don't know anything about this team as it's currently constructed right now. I think everything's going to be a surprise.
Yeah, Adam, I think you're right. I mean, I don't think in general, I don't think you can take a ton from the preseason. We've talked about it before. Last year, the Titans went 3-0 in the preseason. They went 3-14, had the number 1 pick. The Lions, who went 0-16, they went 4-0 in the preseason. So did the Browns when they went 0-16. Like, the preseason doesn't tell you a whole lot. I would say the 2 things that I think I feel differently about after the preseason, and again, take this with a grain of salt, because as Adam said, the ones for the Titans on both sides of the ball really didn't see any starters in all 3 preseason games. I feel better about the offensive line. I think the offensive line has proven that they deserve a little bit of trust heading into this year, with, first of all, the investment put in and all the reports coming out of camp and what we've seen in the preseason. It seems like that group is going to hold their own. So I think I feel better about the offensive line.
Yeah, I think Adam in Portland was pretty spot on, because I feel better. I feel much better about Cam. I feel better about the offensive line, but nothing in terms of my opinion has really changed. I felt really good about Alec Aomaner when he was drafted. I felt good about Gunnar Helm when he was drafted. They have lived up to my expectations so far. Cedric Gray, I guess, because he's been making plays.
That was where I was going next. Was I think the one big surprise to me is that the young inside linebackers have flashed.
James Williams as well.
Right.
He seems like he's really getting in a groove of the transition from safety to backer. His body looks different. And he played majority next to Cody Barton in preseason training camp. So I still think Cedric Gray is going to get the start, though.
I think so, too. And I think those are the two spots where my opinion has differed a little bit throughout the preseason is heading into training camp with the offensive line. We talked about all the investment in it, but with how bad the offensive line has been for the last half decade, it's like, all right, you got to show me that you're better. And I get it. It's not the regular season yet, and we have to see it in Denver in a couple of weeks. But everything I've seen has allowed me to, the nerves about the offensive line, I think, have been calmed a little bit. I feel like that's going to be a competent group this year, which is all you can ask for. And
even
then,
if they're average,
right,
it's much better than what you've had.
Again, be the 15th best offensive line in the league, and that is a huge improvement over everything since Taylor Lewan blew out his knee for the second time. And then the inside linebackers. I think that is a group that was widely regarded as maybe one of the worst position groups in the NFL. Like, it was a room that had, heading into the training camp, almost no redeeming qualities. Like, it was like, all right, we got a hodgepodge of young guys and a journeyman free agent we brought in. Can they figure it out? I think that's going to be a decent room for this team. So those are the two groups that I think have changed. For Cam Ward, I think it's about the same. Again, I had high expectations for Cam Ward. I think at first he underwhelmed, but he's worked his way back up and developed well throughout training camp. Every other position has been about exactly as I would have expected. The wide receivers, the corners, the defensive line we haven't seen a ton out of because Sweat hasn't been out there. I think maybe that's the biggest area of concern for me that I didn't have at the beginning of training camp is, will Tavondre Sweat be able to take the next step, considering he missed pretty much all of training camp?
Yeah, just the defensive line in general is probably that and corner are the two spots that scare me the most. And who knew that we would be saying this about inside backer, about how we actually feel good about this group, or somewhat decent. Cody Barton, to me, if you saw what he was doing on Friday, I mean, he was directing everybody. He knows what the entire defense is doing. And that being that cerebral and that green dot guy is going to help this defense more than anything. Having him leading the pack in the middle, and then you got Amani Hooker, who's a well-established veteran, Jeffrey Simmons up front. That's big time.
Yes. I think the inside linebacker, we can call them the most improved position group throughout training camp in the preseason. Overall, though, it's a good call from Adam, because even splitting hairs, these marginal changes in opinion on these different position groups, I don't think it changes the win total. Like, I still think this is a 5 to 6 win, maybe 7 win team at the end of the day, but that's a step forward based on last year. And I think just having competent quarterback and offensive line play could be enough for 2 to 3 extra wins alone. We'll see what the rest of the changes to this roster can lead to in 2025. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. Last call for phones on our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We will wrap up the show coming up next with some thoughts on Big Jeff. He was out there on the field on Friday, and I was impressed from what I saw from big number 98 in his preseason debut this year. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final segment on this Monday morning. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Chase and Big Joe coming up right after us with reaction to week 0 in college football, Titans' final preseason game on Friday night, and much more. Excited to listen in to Chase and Joe. And again, tomorrow, it is a TD Tuesday. I know that the TD's been bouncing around with us the last couple of weeks with Titans practice moving, but he will be with us tomorrow, getting ready for cut down day coming up tomorrow afternoon. So we'll get all of TD's thoughts on the 53-man roster and what the Titans could look like heading into week 1. Excited to have Teron Davenport with us for the full show tomorrow morning. Let's wrap up the show with some thoughts on Jeffrey Simmons. But first, Justin Mello, who he's the guy to follow on Twitter if you want to know Titans cut news, reports the Titans are waiving undrafted free agent cornerback Jalen Kimber. Kimber signed with the Titans out of Penn State after the 2025 NFL draft. So seems like the DB rooms are where the Titans are making their first cuts. Joshua Bledsoe, Davion Ross, Jalen Kimber are the first reported cuts for the Titans as they work their way down to 53. And actually, from Paul Kaharski, couple other cuts. Joe Gaziano, who is on the defensive line, Julius Wood has been cut, and Jaquan Jackson has been cut. So Jackson, 6th-round pick out of Tulane, really not a whole lot of surprise there. He showed flashes last year, thought that maybe he could be the solution at returner, but after one season with the team, he has been cut. Maybe a chance he comes back on the practice squad. I did have some thoughts on Jeffrey Simmons. He was out on the field on Friday night, and Parker, I thought he looked great. And I understand it was against the backup offensive line, but I thought he did what he was supposed to do against the backups, and he dominated. There was multiple reps from my seats that I was like, all right, I'm going to watch Jeff on this play. And he was only out there for 2 drives. And Jeff just pushed aside the guard like they weren't even there. The Vikings were doing everything they could to get the ball out quick because I think they knew that Jeffrey Simmons versus their backup offensive lineman probably wasn't going to end well. But there were multiple times where he just brushed aside a blocker, got into the backfield. He made a nice tackle for loss. So again, it's early, but I liked the early returns on Jeff Simmons with the new look body and the way that he's playing. I think we could be in for a big year from Jeff Simmons. Obviously, he's got to go out and prove it. He's got to stay healthy, but he did look like the guy he's supposed to look like playing against second-string players on Friday.
And I know we've had our complaints about Jeffrey Simmons here at this station, but we will give him his props too. He looks really good. His body, just seeing him up close and in person, he looks really good. And I'll give him props for begging Brian Callahan to play a series or 2 on Friday night because it seems like he hasn't played a preseason game in 4 or 5 years maybe. So I'll give him props. I thought he looked really good and excited to see what he can do on the field this season.
Yeah, Jeffrey Simmons, from everybody who's been at practice, that's one of the first things they mentioned is you see Jeff and it's like, yeah, that dude is in the best shape of his life. And on Friday night, he didn't have to go out and play. Like, he's kind of earned with his status and what he's done at the NFL level. Like, you don't really need to see him in the preseason. I thought it was good to have him out there. And again, I think he did what you expect an all-pro level player to do against second stringers, which is, I thought he dominated. Like, obviously he didn't get sacks, but again, I was like, the Vikings were just trying to get the ball out as fast as they could because I think they understood that Simmons with the starting edge guys, even though the Titans starting edge guys might not be the best out there, that you were going to have pressure in your face pretty much immediately. And Jeff Simmons, he looked great. I'm excited to see what he looks like in week 1. The question becomes Tavondre Sweat. And Brian Callahan did say in his press conference Saturday after the game on Friday, he said that J.C. Latham, Calvin Ridley, and Tavondre Sweat are all tracking for week 1. So that is good news. Those are 3 really, really important players for you to have ready for that opening game against the Broncos. Latham, I think, most importantly. Ridley probably in that same tier. But with Tavondre Sweat, I don't know how impactful he's going to be in week 1, having missed so much time in training camp in the preseason and having to play in the thin air up there at Mile High. But it is good to hear that he'll at least be hopefully ready for that game because Simmons and Sweat, if the Titans defense is going to be better this year, those are the two guys who need to have big seasons.
Yeah, and Simmons feels the pressure because he knows that this defensive line room is not great by any means. So he feels the pressure and he's responding, I feel like, at least in a good way in the offseason when games weren't being played, of taking the necessary steps to changing your body. Tavondre Sweat even mentioned that he lost a little bit of weight too, which I'm sure can only be a good thing. But they're going to be heavily reliant upon them. And also, L'Jarius Sneed said at practice last week that he'll be trending to play for week 1 at Denver. So if you're able to get him back, and again, not asking him to be a top 5, top 10 corner, just play average. And that'll help the secondary so much.
Yeah, L'Jarius Sneed just needs to be a starting caliber corner. And again, you mentioned he said he's confident for week 1, but we've been hearing it for weeks. L'Jarius Sneed saying he's the healthiest he's ever been. He's coming back and finally was activated off the PUP last week. I'll believe it when I see it if he's out there in uniform against Denver in week 1. But you're right. Tavondre Sweat, I think he was hoping for a big year coming off what was a solid rookie season. Hit a little bit of a bump in the road with the abdominal injury and then the tonsillitis, and he hasn't been able to be out there. We'll see how impactful he is early in the season. I do have to say, even though you mentioned Sweat may have lost some weight, it was easy to find Tavondre Sweat on the sideline.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%.
I was looking down there on Friday night, and I'm like, oh, where's I was looking, I was like, there's Calvin Ridley, and I was like, all right, where's Sweat? And immediately you're like, oh, it's the guy who's bigger without pads on than everybody else with their pads
The guy
on.
who looks like a house. That's him.
Yeah, so Tavondre Sweat, still the big T Sweat, meatloaf, whatever you want to call him. The hope is that he is ready for week 1. Again, Brian Callahan saying that he hopes Latham, Sweat, and Ridley are all going to be ready for the opener against Denver. Lots of moves going to be made over the next couple of days. Make sure you keep it right here on 102.5 The Game. We'll have all your updates as the cuts continue to come in. We've heard of at least 6 from the Titans so far, courtesy of Justin Mello and Paul Kaharski on X throughout the morning. I'm sure there will be many more in the afternoon and throughout tomorrow as the Titans have to get down to 53.
I'm keeping my email refreshed.
Right.
Just waiting for the emails.
They're going to get down to 53 by 3 o'clock tomorrow. Mike Borgonzi going to speak on Wednesday about the moves they make. And by that time, you would think we start to know some of the waiver claims as well, as the Titans will surely use their top waiver priority at least once. I would expect more times than that. That'll just about do it for us on this Monday. Big thanks to Parker Kelly. I'm Jake Lyman. Again, reminder, TD Tuesday tomorrow. Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, going to join us for all 3 hours tomorrow as we prepare for the Titans to cut down to 53. That wraps it up. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next here on 102.5 The Game.